Hi everyone, it's Neve here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be playing with some of the Kinder Creations new releases and making some Halloween cards. So Kinder Creations is an Australian company who makes fantastic stencils and chipboard pieces and all sorts of yummy goodies, and they've sent some their Halloween bits and pieces for me to have a play with. So I'm starting out making 3 cards and I'm using my Distress Oxides to make a background. So the colours I'm using are Spice Pumpkin, Carved Pumpkin, Wilted Violet and Twisted Citron. And all I've done is just scribble them out onto my mat, sprayed some water over the top, and then just pounced the cardstock into it. And the first one I was really happy with because I had beautiful purples and greens through it, but the next 2 got very orange. So I just continued to put some colours out until I was happy with it. So I don't mind that the backgrounds are subtle because I'm going to be adding more stuff over the top, layering over the top. So I'm starting with a double boil and trouble stencil and using the Twisted Citron to just go over the top of the first one. Then I'm using the Wilted Violet to put the cobweb over the second one. And they're not going completely to the edge, and I'm happy with that because I'm going to trim these down so they actually fit onto the cardstock that I'm going to be using. I'm using long thin cardstock just for something different. I usually always do A5 cards, but I just wanted to do something a little bit larger because I had some ideas of stacking some things, particularly when I saw this stencil of the pumpkin. So my idea for this card is to stack up the pumpkins on top of each other and put different faces, almost making like a pumpkin totem pole. So I've got my acrylic paints out. I've got some tangerine, and cheddar from Dina Wakley, and some pure sunshine from Dylusions range. And I'm just mixing up the oranges as I go. I'm not cleaning my sponge, so I'm getting a variety of different colours as I go up. Now, they're fairly similar orange colours as you go up, but you can see sort of slight variations as well. Now I'm just going in with my black ink and just putting the different faces on the pumpkins. So I really love this, and it's such a simple card to do, and you can make a great border on a page or on an art journal or on a scrapbook page as you're making this. So I'm going in with my Stabilo Oil Pencil and just adding in some details of the little sections of the pumpkin. I'm not a brilliant pumpkin drawer, I have to say, so I'm not sure if I actually got them right. I'm sort of just going off memory here, but just adding that little detail in just added something to the pumpkins, and having the Stabilo Oil Pencil and activating that over the top just gave a little bit of shadow to the pumpkins and helped them look more 3D than the flatness that they had before, because it would be really hard to go in with ink and sort of shade them. So using the pencil made it much easier. With this one, I really love the subtlety of the green in the background. It's a little bit hard to see on screen. When you actually see it in real life, the green comes across a lot more. So while I'm doing this video, I'm sort of playing around with 3 different ideas at the same time and just sort of going from idea to idea. Apart from the stacked pumpkins, I didn't really have much of an idea of what I was going to do for the other ones. So I was just playing around. I had lots of paint left over, so I decided to go and put this over the top of the purple cobweb. And I love that it comes up so well. And one of my favourite things to do is to tear edges. I just love that rough effect, and you can do so much with it. It sort of looks almost grungy. So I'm going in with the Black Soot Distress Oxide again, and then I'm going in with black VersaFine. Now the reason I'm using the 2 different blacks is the Black Soot Distress Oxide almost goes down to a grey colour. You can water activate it, and it just gives a softness to the edge, particularly to the torn edges, whereas having the dark on the background, the dark edge of the VersaFine on the very edge of the piece of paper gives it a border. Sorry, I was trying to follow my train of thought here. I was stuck on this long thin one for a long time. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it, so I go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And one of the things that came in the kit was these awesome tissues. So they're printed tissues. They've got skeletons and skulls and hands, some hearts on it, just all sorts of different stuff. And I love using collage tissues, so I was quite happy to put it on. Now I was a bit rough with this. They are very, very delicate, so you do need to be really delicate as you're going along. Even using my finger, I was breaking it up, because when I use collage tissues, I tend to put a lot of gel medium on because I want them to go really, really translucent. It didn't matter in this case because I wanted it to look grungy, that I didn't have the full image on there. So I just went in with Tim Holtz stamp of the skull and crossbones because I just wanted the bones down the bottom. And I really liked how that piece came up. Excuse me, sorry. And this is me jumping around again. I suddenly realized when I did this that I didn't trim my piece of paper down, so I need to trim it down so it'll actually fit on my page. These glass mats are awesome because you've got the measurements there and you can just cut off what you need and make sure it's even. So going backwards and forwards between the two pages, I decided I was going to put these hands on this page. I learnt from my past mistakes, so I'm going back in and trimming that piece of paper before I start. Makes it a lot easier when you're actually organised. And with this one, I decided I'd use the hands, and I was going to be a little bit more careful with how I applied the gel medium, just to make sure it didn't tear or move as much as the skull did on me. So going back in, being again very generous with the paint and putting on, or the gel medium, I thought using my fingers would help. And it did in the most part. I just rubbed a little bit too hard in some spots and bent the fingers. You can see that on the right hand side, but I actually quite like that effect because it makes it look more broken and creepy. So because I had so much gel medium on, it took a little while to dry. Now the other thing that could well have been the issue I was having is I'm actually using a new brand of gel medium, which I've never used before, and I'm wondering if that may be the issue I'm having. So with the leftover paint, I'm getting out my Use It Up journal and putting in all my orange paint, and then getting out a Dina Wakley page because I had extra there and putting that in. Now you'll see these two journal pages popping up again in the near future with some other ideas that I've got for the stencils and the other bits and pieces that came in my kit. Just cleaning down my page because I'm a messy worker, so I need to make sure it stays nice and clean. And then I'm just using double-sided tape to tape down my focus pieces onto my cards. So it's a fairly simple card and I really liked it, but then I was looking at it thinking, oh, it's a bit flat, I need to do something with this. So I went through the box again and I found a whole heap of little wooden veneers or wooden pieces and chipboard pieces, some bats and a big piece saying Halloween. And I decided I was going to use those just to give a little bit of a 3D effect. When I was gluing down the pages, I was considering using double-sided tape just to pop them up a bit from the page, and I probably would have gone with that, but I'm glad I put these chipboard pieces on instead. Now I quite like them in the colour they came in, but me being me, I just wanted to add a little bit more of a pop of colour to it. So I get out my embossing enamels, or embossing powders would work exactly the same, and I'm going to colour them just to add in some extra colour. Now one of the things I found with these pages is I lost the greens, particularly on the skull and the hands piece, so I want to put some green back in. So I'm starting off with some black embossing powder, dip my pieces into the Versamark pad and just coat them, and then I heat them up. Now I'm putting 2 layers of embossing powder on these pieces just to get them nice and thick and glossy, and you'll notice that I didn't stop and let them dry and then put ink on. The reason for that is if you put ink in between the layers, you've got 2 very thin layers of embossing enamel or embossing powder with a piece of liquid in between. By bonding the powder to itself, you get one thick coat and it's less likely to crack and break off. When I was finished doing my 2 layers, you notice I sprinkled in some different colours just to give a little bit of a sprinkle of colour. So I put some orange on just to add a bit of, tie them in together. And I really liked how that effect came up. So this is for the third card. While I like the white borders and the other two, I felt this card needed something more. So I used the purple wilted violet oxide, and now I'm just spraying it with water just to get that splatter effect and gluing it down. But I decided it needed a border around it. So I'm just drying it off because, again, this gel medium is taking a long while to dry, which is something different from other gel mediums I've used. So I'm using a piece of chipboard to do this. Now this is a very delicate chipboard with the connections in between the letters. So when you're doing this, you need to be really, really careful not to break it. You'll notice it hasn't completely broken, but some of the connections in between the letters are a little bit bendy because I pressed down too hard on them. So I'm just using my green embossing powder to do 2 coats, just to colour it up. If you don't have embossing powder or you're not keen on doing that, use some paint. It will work exactly the same and look really, really good. You can even use glossy accents over the top if you want to have that sort of glossy effect. I'm just no good at waiting for glossy accents to dry. I always put something in it, and it's very good glue. It glues down really, really well. So I'm just using some liquid adhesive to glue this down onto my card. There are 3 really simple cards. They didn't take me all that long to do, but I really love how they came up, and I love the colour palette with all of them. And there's something completely different from what I would usually do. So I'm so pleased that I was pushed out of my comfort zone to use these in a different way. The tissues are a real favourite, but I love these pumpkins. I can see me using them in lots of different ways. And one of my favourite things to do is playing with embossing powder. So I'm so glad that I was able to include that into all 3 of these cards and tie them together. I also really like how these cards, while they're all different, have the same colour theme running through them. So that really tied them all together. So I hope you really enjoyed these videos. This video. There's going to be more to come in the series using these new releases. Please check out Kinder Creations, and I'll leave the link below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.